Welcome back to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight podcast, where we chum the waters looking to hook a nice, juicy analysis for you. We do this because, if you stop swimming, you die. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we today?
As angry as my grandfather about that court-martial.
That was a solid intro joke, considering how many shark attacks are in this movie.
Yep. That's the only. You'll see. You'll have to tune into the next episode to see where I go after this. But we are here today to talk about USS Indianapolis, Men of Courage, 2016 rated R film with a runtime of 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Wait, this was rated R?
Yeah, what? I got PG-13 vibes out of this.
Let me double check my. Yeah, no, that's fucking rated R, dude.
I don't think they dropped an F-bomb, and the shark attacks were pretty mild.
It was all CGI. I don't want to get into it too early, but this movie upset me on a couple of levels. But one of the primary ones was their refusal to use practical effects.
You gotta have a big shark puppet. Come on, that's just laziness. I know there's some out there they could have rented.
It's been you can't have the most famous shark movie using a shark puppet and then come afterwards and bring a weak CGI game. You know what I mean? At least Deep Blue Sea really spent money on their CGI shark effects.
I was going to say Deep Blue Sea fucked.
Deep Blue Sea did fuck.
I think we got some crossover cast actually.
We do indeed, which is a great introduction to housekeeping. So let's jump right into it. For the director, we have Mario Van Peebles, who is known for directing New Jack City, Panther, Badass, and a lot of TV episodes.
A film about his father, Melvin Van Peebles, the famous blaxploitation director.
Yep, but he also directed a couple of one-off TV episodes, including stuff for Lost, Sons of Anarchy, NCIS, the reboot of Roots, and then Power and Empire.
And he's got a bit of an acting career, if I'm not mistaken, too. He was in at least one of the previous Jaws movies.
Yes, and I never did track down. There's some show that he played himself in. It was some Hollywood adjacent sitcom type thing, and he was playing himself in it. Or it was a movie. I can't remember.
Oh, shoot. I know what you're talking about. I got to find it. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm already on it.
Was it
Sherman's Showcase? He plays himself, but I think that's a reality TV show.
He wasn't one of the hooks in that Andrew Garfield super surreal A24 film that is in Hollywood and is about secret societies and weird shit, right? What is it called? Under Silver Lake? I'm not sure if that's the one I'm thinking of or not.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to find it real quick.
I think I started watching that, and the writing was so incredibly grating, I had to stop.
It's a good movie, but it is super surreal. It's just kind of an acid trip, to be honest with you. But I liked it. While you guys are looking to try and satisfy my weird curiosity, let's move on to the writers, because this is where the first signs of trouble started for me, at least. So we have two writers. Starting up, we have Cam Cannon. Nice alliteration in the name, but as far as writing credits, he wrote A Haunting at Silver Falls, Deadlock, and Zero Contact. And I have no familiarity with any of these. A majority of his CV is producer credits, including one for this film. So in my experience so far, which is exclusively restricted to this podcast, it is not a good sign when you got primarily producers writing fucking scripts. It's not good.
No.
And so it gets worse when we get to the second credited writer on this film, Richard Rionda del Castro, whose only other writing credit is Partners in Action. Another big set of producer credits for this individual, but no other writing credits. So we got two people who are primarily producers writing a whole film with no credited script doctor or anything like that. It's not a good sign, at least in my experience. And I honestly, that bears out in this film, in my opinion. We'll see how you all feel as we go through it. Moving on to cast, starting as always, Nick Cage plays Captain McVeigh. After that, we have Tom Sizemore as McWhorter.
So it's actually funny because I always thought I knew what Tom Sizemore looked like, and
you don't just remember him from that Always Sunny episode.
No. Just in my head, I was picturing Tom Selleck.
Okay, yeah, that's another good Tom. There's some good Toms in this.
Like
Underutilized Toms.
I kind of realized halfway through the movie, I'm just like, I have no fucking idea what Tom Sizemore looks like.
That's a funny mix up for Sizemore too, by the way. Confusing him with Selleck.
I'm like, where's the mustache? Where's the blue bloods?
Yeah.
So if any of you listeners are unfamiliar with Tom Sizemore, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, you would probably remember him if you had recently watched Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, The Relic, Strange Days, and most importantly for me, an episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he plays a truck driver who mistakes some members of the central cast as quote lot lizards, as he's a big rig truck driver. So, but also Sizemore has a acting credential list almost as long as Nicolas Cage. The man's been in a lot of stuff.
He went
Twice
to
as
Temple
long.
University.
Oh shit.
Oh,
He's a hometown hero?
I went
he's
there.
from Michigan, but he went to Temple.
Surprised I didn't run into him. No, I'm kidding. I'm probably in a much later
I think it's
class
probably a
than
different
Sizemore.
class, yeah.
Next up, we have Thomas Jane as Lieutenant Adrian Marks. It's weird. He has a prominent billing on this film, but he's not in a lot of it. And you will probably remember Thomas Jane from my favorite Punisher movie, The Punisher.
Oh, you like that one less than Warzone?
Less than you I like it more.
I mean,
than
more
Warzone?
than Warzone.
Yeah.
I like it less than Warzone.
Warzone was an interesting take where they leaned more into the over the top comic book style action, but I liked it. The cast was really good in the Thomas Jane Punisher too.
I'll agree with that. The Tom Jane Punisher is real fun. I like all the Punisher movies, even the Dolph
Lundgren one,
where they
own that.
rip off that scene from Blade Runner where the girl gets on his neck and tries to choke him out with her thighs.
Yeah.
Seeing that too early did something to my brain.
He is also in one of my favorite TV shows ever, Hung.
Hung Rules. Yeah,
I
also,
love that show.
One of the hands down best Stephen King adaptations, The Mist.
Yes,
That was not bad. And I am not a fan of Stephen King adaptations, except for like kind of the heavy hitters, The Shining, It. I really think
The Stand TV show is pretty good. Cujo, Carrie.
See,
I mean, you gotta love
Cujo.
any of the. You didn't like Cujo?
Not like Cujo as compared to the book.
Fair.
I honestly, Cujo gets a nod from me just because it came from King's cocaine fueled writing days, and that was the best King. I'm sorry, some of his later stuff.
No. The book was great. I think it was hard to make that kind of dog seem so menacing on film. I think that was the issue. It didn't translate very well.
That's fair. I did just notice we forgot a Sizemore call it. He is in another Nick Cage movie, my personal favorite, Bringing Out the Dead.
Oh shit!
Ooh,
there you go. And also, like at this point, we have run through almost every single movie I had listed in Thomas Jane's credits. We missed Boogie Nights. We already referenced Deep Blue Sea. Already referenced The Mist, and we somehow missed a chance to shoehorn in The Thin Red Line.
Yes, the Terrence Malick movie we did mention earlier.
Yeah, right before we started recording, but we almost completely one shot all of that. That's funny.
So just very quickly, just because you brought up Bringing Out the Dead, I had never seen that movie. It's crazy to think that Martin Scorsese directed Nick Cage in a flick. That's crazy.
It's not only my favorite Cage movie; it's probably my favorite Scorsese.
Oh,
well,
we're gonna have to watch some Scorsese now.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
There's a hook for every other mob movie you want to watch on the Patreon episodes, Rich.
I just want to watch. Well, that just gives me basically all of the good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, except for the ones like in the 20s.
But yeah, that's fun.
And I don't have to watch Scarface because that movie blows.
I like De Palma, but I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either, but it's entertaining as shit. I'll give it that.
It's no Phantom of the Paradise, De Palma's most insane movie.
There you go. So next up we have James Remar, I think.
You're looking at me like I know the answer to this, and I don't.
I'm just casting about with my eyes looking for help. he plays Admiral Parnell, but people would recognize him from a bunch of stuff, including Dexter. He played Dexter's dad on the show Dexter. He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Black Coat's Daughter, which I'm a fan of horror movies, but I didn't really care for that one. But he was also in Horns, which is a fun film.
That is a fun movie. It's based on a Joe Hill novel.
It is, and the book is good too.
Yep. And also, we've got Ajax from The Warriors being the role that I recognized him from.
Yes. Next up, we have Matt Lanter as Bama, who this guy looked incredibly familiar to me. I couldn't explicitly place him, but he has a rather established career as a voice actor. Voiced Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars shows, and basically anything that used that character in other Disney shit from there on out. He was also in the Netflix adaptation of Jupiter's Legacy, which was a comic series I liked very much, and Netflix fucked it up in one season, so it didn't get renewed. So there's that.
Yeah, I don't know how you make such a visually boring show out of Frank Quitely art. I just boggles the mind.
And the comics were good. I like that comic series quite a lot, and there was a very obvious cliffhanger that would have guaranteed them a second season, and they chose to slow play it, and I hope they regret that decision. Next up, we have Yutaka Takuchi as Hashimoto, and I apologize if I butchered the pronunciation of this actor's name, but viewers would maybe remember him from The Defenders, the Netflix Marvel, Daredevil, Jessica Jones stuff. He's also in Letters from Iwo Jima, and he was in True Blood.
Which, God, this is coming back. I started watching True Blood again.
True Blood keep coming up?
It comes up a bit.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I just started rewatching it as I was waiting for this movie to download. I watched the first episode, and in my head, the first 2 seasons of True Blood were really good, but I'm wrong. So wrong.
Again, I absorbed some amount of that series through osmosis because my fiance had it on quite a bit. It seems like solid vampire trash. You know what I mean? Like not trash as in like garbage, a garbage show in general, but like that, like trashy romance shit,
That's 100% what it is. It's based on a bunch of romance novels, actually.
There you go.
It leans a little bit too hard into it, I feel. I don't know. Like it.
I don't think they made that show with you in mind for the key demographic, my man.
I don't think so either. I'm going to keep going, and I'm only 1 episode in, and I've seen the series before. I'm going to keep going because fuck it.
Once they get to the whole vampire blood is basically heroin part, it's that's some fun stuff.
Well, that and all the incestuous werewolves.
Oh yeah.
You got
Uncle
me.
Jimmy.
And then the last one I have on here, which I did cut the housekeeping short here because it's an interminably long cast list, and in practice,
and nobody's famous.
These folks really blend together. But I have Johnny Wachter playing Connor, who I can't tell you who Connor is in this film.
I could not tell you who any of these people are other than Tom Jane, Tom Sizemore, and Nick Cage.
Yep, which is fine. And this guy mostly has a TV in his CV, including General Hospital, Siberia, and Criminal Minds. I've heard of 2 of those. And that
General Hospital, low-key Fox.
Yep.
I
don't know.
I will stand. Listen, General Hospital from like 2004 to 2010. One of the main characters was the dude who did the American voice for Cloud Strife from all the Final Fantasy movies.
Okay.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Talking
he's
about
one
like
of the leads.
Like Crisis Core and all those spin-offs, because they didn't have the voice acting in the first one.
He did. He was the Cloud. He was the voice of Cloud in Advent Children, the English version.
Okay.
And anything made after Advent Children, because like he fucking killed that movie.
So as big of a nerd as I am for Final Fantasy VII shit, like I literally pre-ordered the Japanese amiibo for the Switch shit of Cloud, the Japanese version, because he's wearing the Advent Children outfit and has the sword from that. And I also have the American version of that as well. I don't think that's enough to get me to watch a procedural hospital television show drama. I grew up in an ER household. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That'll desensitize you to it real good.
So we are basically the McCoys and the Hatfields over here.
And that is going to wrap up housekeeping for us. We gotta kill this one in the cradle. I can't go through the rest of this list of names.
But yes,
I think the only other one that's notable is the blonde girl that
plays Clara.
She's in a bunch of like Lifetime original movies and Hallmark Christmas shit.
Yeah.
That's about it. I
She
think maybe
was-
some voice acting for superhero cartoons, but
She
yeah.
was in Juno as the pretty to goth girl, and in John Tucker Must Die as the hallway girl,
Oh,
And
and,
to give her
and
credit,
an iRobot as the young girl.
I like Juno. I think the soundtrack's better than the movie, though.
and before we just name this professional woman's credits without actually naming her name is Emily Tennant. So there you go, Emily. You made the cut for housekeeping here. Again,
I mean, she is the only female lead in the movie. I think throwing her that's at least a little necessary.
and she does a fine job.
She does, yeah. There's at least a little bit of pathos to her performance.
Oh yeah, no. I kind of want to be super clear with this movie. The acting is not the problem. I actually thought everybody did a pretty good job of doing what was written for them. That's the problem.
They just have a script written by two guys who should have stuck to producing. That's all. I mean, there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, but hey, speaking of people who don't know what they're doing, we have a Patreon account.
I love that segue.
Yeah, I thought so, because God, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Yeah, we're gonna start doing this in the middle of the episode, so like you can fast forward like 45 seconds if you'd like. That's totally fine with me. The $3 one gets you episodes with no ads, because our podcast people are currently yelling at me via email to put a fucking ad in. So if you don't want that shit, give us $3 a month and you get every episode with no annoying ad in the middle.
Coming soon, ad breaks.
Coming soon, ad breaks. By soon, I mean this episode. I am so sorry, everybody. I will literally be like, this is an ad break. Feel free to skip 90 seconds if you'd like. But we have other things too. We have like a $5 Patreon that gets you an additional monthly episode, a $10 one that gets you a watch along episode, and a $15 a month one that also gets you a live stream of us losing our minds to watching a Nick Cage movie. There's also a $500 one that's only for Nick Cage. Don't subscribe to that. I don't care how much money you have.
Unless you're Nick Cage.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, if you are Nick Cage, like please subscribe to that so we know you're listening. I should probably put like the website here, right? Because I just talked about it. And yeah.
Might be prudent.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Nick Cage Fight. Subscribe, please. I'm so poor. I'm so poor.
So with that out of the way, I think we can move on to the plot if you're gonna make me do that.
Yeah,
So,
this is the point of the podcast, is we're gonna get through every Nick Cage movie.
I do have one more shout out for the housekeeping. We missed that Mario Van Peebles' son is in this.
Oh, I didn't miss it. I just chose to kind of ignore it because,
which is fair. He's in like one of the Saw movies other than this, and that badass movie. That's about it.
Huh.
Just thought it would be prudent to mention the fact that you've got two generations of Van Peepleses in this.
He's also in an episode. He's also in an episode of Wu-Tang in American Saga.
I don't know what that is, and I love Wu-Tang.
I think Peebles did that. I think Peebles directed that.
Okay, tracks.
I'm looking at it right now. He was the executive producer.
There you go.
All right.
That tracks.
But yeah, it's like the story of Wu-Tang in American Saga is set in New York City during the height of the crack cocaine epidemic.
Oh, there you go. Wu-Tang's for the children.
Wu-Tang is for the children and for the crack.
So the opening title shot of the film informs us that this movie is based on a true story. That true story being the story that is told in Jaws.
Yeah, and also like two people in this movie actually existed. Everybody else is a composite character or never existed. Like we're at Pearl Harbor levels of based on a true story here.
Yeah, honestly, every time I see something like that, I assume that's the level of actual nonfiction that we're getting. But it seems overly apparent in this one. So in the opening scene is actually relatively exciting. We get a battleship, the USS Indianapolis, being attacked by a bunch of planes and shooting them out of the air. Nick Cage, I found this funny, unintentionally funny, because Nick Cage is like on the bridge, like looking out, and he's shouting instructions to a man that is standing like this guy's face is 6 inches away from Nick Cage's face, and he's shouting at him, and this guy is shouting the exact same thing into a phone. that I'm assuming relays it to other parts of the ship. But it makes
Nick Cage can't be bothered to hold a telephone. What do you think this is?
They're standing right next to each other. It's like that's what your tax dollars are going towards.
Well, no. So my theory is that like when you hire Nick Cage, there's like levels to what he is willing to do, like a writer almost, and they didn't quite get to that level. So he's like, yeah, no, it says right here, I am not to hold any phones. I can yell, but I am not to hold any phones.
You know what's funny is I was going to say that my opinion on it was that Nick Cage, wrote up a whole backstory for his character, not based on the guy's actual life, and was like, he has a deep phobia of phones. But then I remembered he absolutely answers a phone later in this film, so that doesn't track.
Right, but that would be something that Nick Cage would do. Like your story is way more based in reality because he puts, apparently even in these dog shit films, he puts deep lore behind his characters.
Of course he fucking does. Yeah, I don't doubt that shit for a second. But anyway, after all this shouting's going on, the ship seems to be doing a serviceable job of shooting these planes out of the air, but eventually a plane hits the ship. There's some fire and explosion. And then we cut immediately away from our introduction to the ship to a group of men sitting in a shadowy room looking at war footage and talking about dropping the atomic bombs on Japan. And they're discussing how to do this. And the plan essentially involves sending one fast ship to get these bombs delivered to a base where a bomber can actually hit the targets from after taking off from. So we then cut back to the hero of the story, Nick Cage, Captain McVeigh, talking like speaking out loud to a picture of a woman talking about kamikaze pilots. And it's a little confusing at first, but then we realize he's working out the lines that he's writing in a letter to this woman who is his wife, right?
Which I'm fine. Like, I'm fine with that as a storytelling device where like you have to explain that like, oh, there's another kind of like underwater kamikaze and like kind of catching the audience up. It's a little bit awkward. I'm fine with it.
It's something that it's a trope in war movies that surfaces pretty consistently. I can remember at least like 2 instances of it. There's like Biloxi Blues, which is a World War II training montage with Matthew Broderick in it. I'm pretty sure Thin Red Line also does the writing home to somebody while dumping some exposition stuff. So there's some established trope there.
Yeah, well, I'll give it credit because you got 2 options here. You can do it this way where the guy's like feeling out the lines out loud before he writes them, or you got voiceover, just reading what's being written.
Well, we get voiceover later, too, which I think comes in way too late in the movie to establish that there's voiceover in this movie.
Yeah. There's some design decisions that are incoherent in this, but...
It's got big Blade Runner theatrical cut energy because of that.
Yeah, well...
Oh, yeah.
We're coming up on what, in my opinion, is probably the most incongruous scene in the entirety of the film. Because right after this letter scene, we cut to 2 Navy men in Napa Valley in April of 1945. And the Navy guys are talking about, the one guy's sweet on some girl, and they pull up to this mansion. And one of them is Bama, and the other one is his friend Mike D'Antonio. And Bama is brought up to talk to some old guys. It's not made explicitly clear if he's related to any of them, but some context later in the film, this is likely his, the neighborhood at least, or the area in which he was born and grew up. But after he's talking to these guys who are asking him how the war is going, and he's like, oh yeah, well, we're not sure about this, that, or the other. Why do you have like a kid in the service? And the guy's like, no, man, I'm invested in steel. Like we don't want this war to end too quickly here. But then comes the really weird scene because Bama's friend Mike is downstairs teaching a room full of women their age how to dance, and it's done like a dance scene. Like there's a jazzy soundtrack and choreographed dancing with D'Antonio and several different women.
I do have to say the music in this is one of the only things I legitimately loved.
I don't have a particular bone to pick with that. It's just weird to have a dance scene, one dance scene.
Right, yeah.
in a war movie and like ham
Yeah,
it up
it's-
too.
Especially if it's not one of those what are they called? Like Bob Hope used to do them, the entertaining the troops overseas kind of deals.
USOs.
USO shows, yes.
Yeah, no, it's a random dance scene that feels shoehorned in. It's very bizarre, and there's nothing else that matches this tenor or tone in the rest of the movie, as far as my memory serves, and
No, it's
notes.
no.
So yeah, it's weird. And then we cut to we fast forward to July in San Francisco, where the Indianapolis is in harbor in Sizemore. We get our first shot of Sizemore, who every time he's on screen in this film, it does the film a service, because those are the scenes I liked. I want a cut of this film with just Tom Sizemore's scenes.
You want the Sizemore cut.
I
He's
do.
got some animal magnetism in this movie.
He does. He's great. I don't even know if they gave him lines for it. They're like, just this is what your guy would do, and you just provide the lines, because it sounds about like that could have been the case for this. But he's shouting at a bunch of guys doing repairs, and Cage's character, Captain McVeigh, has a sit down with an admiral who explains that he's been given a highly classified mission. He has to deliver mysterious cargo to a specific location, and his ship won't have an escort. And the whole time they're having this conversation in, like, I guess one of the conference rooms on this battleship, there's guys like welding a box down to the floor. I actually have still, after having watched this film several times, I have no idea what the fuck that thing is. They open it later in the film, and I still don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah, I got nothing. I don't know what the historical context of that is.
Wait, of what the wait a second, what?
They're welding like a metal box over something else onto the floor in the room where Captain McVeigh is being told about his top secret mission.
So what I'm guessing, if I were to take a guess, it's probably like a little lead room for them to store the nuclear material.
Oh, that does make sense. Yeah. Because I don't think that. Yeah, because they're not they're not moving the bombs themselves on the Indianapolis. It's parts of the bombs, and I think it's specifically the nuclear payloads.
Well, also what they deliver are like big ass crates in the end. So like if they just unwelded the box at the end and moved that off, that would be one thing. Also, it wouldn't make sense to send that on a fucking battleship, I don't think. So
well, yeah, but I mean they don't really have any other way to. I'm
true.
defending. Don't make me defend this.
Yeah,
movie,
don't make
Josh.
any.
No,
we
no.
really shouldn't be defending this movie.
I'm gonna, because you're like, yeah, that's nuclear material. It's like there's guys actively welding the lead box over it with an admiral and a captain in the same fucking room.
I'm assuming they were building the box and then they put the material inside of it.
Maybe I don't know.
That's my guess. Again, no reason to
Yeah,
defend this steaming turd.
Yeah, my guess as well is that it's being used to house nuclear material, and we're just gonna move on from here.
No. That's more than I have to offer, so I'm willing to run with that. If you have a better idea out there, listener, write in, call in, tell us what you fucking think was in the box.
Yeah, but you fucked up my transition, because I was going to say we're going to move on from that right to ads, because we have to do that now.
All right, right into the show while you're listening to the ad, or just fast forward through it.
Yeah, like, we have a Twitter. You can just go to Twitter and be like, hey, I'm on your ads. How long are they? So I know how long to skip, because I know that's what I do with podcast ads. And I don't give a shit if you skip them. It's fine. Wait, what's our Twitter again? Like,
at cagefight _
pod.
I wasn't prepared. It's just on my phone. I don't have to think about it.
Same. If you think we've memorized it by this point, you don't know us very well.
And ads.
And we're back. We're done arguing about what was being welded to the floor during this scene, which is good that we're finished with that, because we cut right away from this to a theater where there's a bunch of enlisted men in there. We get some context where some of the sailors are talking about an issue one of them had with another sailor. And then we cut to Bama and his friend Mike. And Mike, this is a hilarious scene we were talking about before we started recording, because Bama's friend uses a Wayne Gretzky quote that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, which was not a saying at the time this film was set.
Wildly anachronistic. There's a lot of era inappropriate stuff in this movie, like to the point where I didn't even clock a lot of it.
This is, but like of all the quotes you could use, almost people who don't know who Wayne Gretzky is know that this line is attributed to him because they've watched The Office.
I about to say because they watched The Office.
I know.
Like this wasn't made in like 1999. Where like, okay, we just skate. It was 2016. The Office was already the biggest thing on television. People are still being shitty on the internet, talking about this fucking show, talking about the same 17. Is Jim really the villain? Yes, he is. Shut up about it.
He's just a guy who bullies an autistic person for like so many seasons.
But
on top of that, it's 2016.
He breaks up a wedding.
Yeah,
it is. It's 2016. What happened is one of these producer writers like just got into The Office or was already a huge fan. It has to be what happened here.
Yeah, anybody could go visit my friend and yours, Mr. Google, and find out the truth.
Yeah. Anyway, shortly after this, the context that we were provided just moments ago comes to fruition because a fight breaks out. Now, real quick, because I glossed over it, Bama and Mike D'Antonio's conversation revolves around Mike wanting to propose to one of the women from the dancing scene, and Bama kind of telling him that sounds like a stupid idea, and also, he grew up on the wrong side of the tracks for her particular family, blah blah blah. But Mike has already bought a ring, so fight breaks out with the sailors, between two of them specifically, and then a bunch of sailors just like circle around, start placing bets and things like that, and
they start calling it out, but there's never any money, and it's like, how do you judge that?
Well, it's really funny because there's a whole subplot about the romance and the ring, and the guy who tries to bet is the guy who has money problems that are never really defined.
A lot of stuff isn't defined in this.
It's defined at like the end of the movie, but it's like if they just defined it here, like, and it would have taken 3 seconds. I'll take this guy. I have a $10,000 loan to pay. Done. Got it. Perfect.
That even seems pretty high for World War II. I'd say like $5,000 would be enough to
even if it's 1,000, whatever number you pick, it's like, oh, he's in debt. So now everything he does in the future makes complete sense.
Well, informed by that piece of foreshadowing.
They clarify it a little bit later, but it is extra funny when you think about it in that context. Because Rich, I didn't notice that. It's just the one guy who's like, I got $100 on this guy, and nobody else is betting, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, like nobody does anything. It's.
So, and also just to clarify, because I guess I didn't make this clear because I don't care about the subplots in this film. I barely care about the main plot in this film. But this is another subplot that's about racial tensions between servicemen in World War II, because one of the sailors in the confrontation is black and the other one is white. So during the fight, Mike loses the ring. He has it just sitting in his front pocket. He gets jostled. He actually gets into a mini scuffle himself, I think. And
As
then
one just puts an engagement ring. Josh, you're engaged. You just left that ring just lying around all willy-nilly in your hoodie pockets. And
I was literally so terrified because it's the most amount of money I've spent on anything, and I'm a man child who spends a lot on his hobbies and shit. I had that thing insured before I walked out because I was of the store that I purchased it at, because I was convinced I was going to Scooby-Doo trip over myself and was going to fall down a storm drain like as soon as I walked out the door. The staff actually laughed at me because they're like, yeah, no, you just go home and you can apply for the insurance online. I was like, absolutely the fuck not. This is I'm going to have this fully insured before I walk out the door with it. I don't even want to hold it until we get this part done.
I personally would be afraid that I would trip, fall, the ring would fly through the air, and a dog would eat it.
Yes.
Then you have to follow the dog around.
Then I have to follow the dog around for 3 days. It's not even my dog.
That's the other thing. And on the drive home, I couldn't get out of my head that if I got into a horrible car accident and totaled my car, at least if the ring flew off into the woods, that was insured, because that was handled easily the most valuable thing traveling between those two destinations. But anyway, yeah, no, if you're not like me and you're like this dipshit, you just keep it unboxed in your front pocket without even a button on it. So it gets jostled, it bops out, and the guy who's trying to bet on the fight does the little like put your shoe over it, like nobody's noticed it. So yeah, like he puts his foot over it and picks it up because MPs show up and break up the fight and so on and so forth. Now, At this point in time, Mike had fumbled a meeting with this girl he wants to propose to, Clara, her parents, and they have a brief confrontation where she's like, I don't care what my parents think, dude. And he's like, well, that's good because, and he goes to reach for the ring and he can't find it, so he can't propose to her. And the MPs are dragging off these Navy guys because the USS Indianapolis has gotten new orders and they have to ship out, right? So we cut to Cage giving the sailors like a rousing speech on the deck of the ship before they leave. And it's not Cage's fault. He delivers it very well, but I described it as rousing just to be charitable because I don't remember a fucking word that he says. It's no Braveheart speech.
It's very generic. He says, if I remember correctly, he says like, I am a captain and you are my crew. Like without a captain, you don't exist, and without a crew, I don't exist, or something like that.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's very generic. It's
like I said, it's not a Braveheart speech, but it is delivered by a decidedly less racist actor. So give it credit.
Yeah, I will give it much credit, actually.
So this is also where we get some context about why it's so important that the Indianapolis is making this journey without an escort. And the reason why is because the escort around these battleships is supposed to deal with one threat and one threat only primarily, and that is submarines. The battleship can't do anything about submarines, really. And even though they can be fast on the open waters, the Japanese are using specially designed torpedoes, manned suicide torpedoes called Kitons. I actually, I'm an idiot, and I definitely don't know a lot about history. I don't know if this is a thing or not. It tracks well enough, considering some of the other tactics that I am familiar with.
You know what? I'm a fucking idiot and didn't even look this up. I'm going to.
Yeah, I probably should have, but I remember like mentally being like, I don't know if that's real or
it's
not.
a real thing. There's a whole wiki for it.
Okay, well there you go.
Oh, yep. Just got it right here.
The term is the Japanese phrase meaning turn the heaven or turn of the heavens will, because they thought that it would shake the heavens.
As an underwater munition?
Yeah. The torpedoes that were manned torpedoes, Kitons.
Huh. There you go. Also, by the way, I just fucking love the way they name things. It's so dramatic and cool. We just, I don't even know what we name our munitions, just letters and numbers mostly, with periods thrown in between the numbers, and I'm never quite sure how to pronounce them or like how you're supposed to say them.
Yeah, they're all like Gundam call numbers, like the RX-78-2.
Yeah.
There's no more like Panzers. Like, yo, that was some scary shit. You got a Panzer coming at you, like, shit, this is gonna suck to be me in about 2 seconds.
So at this point, I'll give them this transition. They do like setting up what's going to happen very ham-fisted and right before it happens, because after this, we cut to the interior of a Japanese submarine, and we get an opening scene here where the captain or commander of the Japanese sub is taking a moment to himself and reflecting on his record, I guess, in the war so far, which is not super great. They haven't really taken out anything major, but he's reassured in this conversation that he is having with his ancestor that he has accomplished keeping his men alive, which is arguably one of the more important things the commander can do. So, essentially the advice from across generations is, look, it's basically a wash. You haven't destroyed anything, but you didn't get anybody killed yet. So, but they start arming these Kitons, the manned suicide torpedoes, and we cut back to the Indianapolis. And this is a weird scene. I would walk you through it to like increase the tension, but I think that's giving it a little bit too much credit.
There's not a whole lot of tension because in movies like this, where it's based on a true story, and we know, not that people know what happened here, but like you can easily look it up, that it's like they made it to their destination.
Yeah, but the way it's shot, so we cut in back and forth between the sub and the Indianapolis, and we're led to believe that this sub has sighted the USS Indianapolis, and they fire a manned torpedo at it, and the USS Indianapolis is like firing munitions into the water and shit. And then as soon as the pivotal elements of the scene resolve, we realize that no, the Japanese sub was shooting at a merchant ship. They shot a manned suicide torpedo at a merchant ship and fucking missed.
Sucks to be
And
that guy.
so bad, dude. Like, it's one thing to, I guess, be like a true believer in a cause and be willing to sacrifice your life to it, and there's another it's another thing
Yeah,
entirely.
I just realized why that thing's called the will of heaven, because kamikaze means the wind of heaven, and if it's a kamikaze torpedo, it would have that same cultural connotation.
Okay.
Now, my question is, if you're in a kamikaze torpedo and you miss, are you able to go back to the sub you came from, or are you just
no? That's
the last thing they'd want to happen.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain those charges are on a timer. It's not impact based, which is how most torpedoes work.
Gotcha. I didn't know how torpedoes worked. It's just like, oh, you just died for literally nothing.
You know, and I am going to look that up. Let me get us some proper information about this completely accurate World War II movie.
Either way, man, that's a fucking bummer.
Like, yeah, because like at least if you're a kamikaze plane and you fuck up, it's like you're in a plane. It's fine. You can go back. But like you're essentially in a bullet. They have put you in a bullet.
Yeah, you're just in like an underwater Tesla. It's gonna blow up at some point.
No. We have to post this on Twitter. Good Lord, Sir Elon Musk. We apologize and make reparations and will pay you $8 a month for a pretty blue check mark, to which I will begin impersonating, I don't know, Donald Rumsfeld. And just constantly post every day like 9/11 LOL.
Yeah, no, the funniest thing though is if we just posted this as a joke on Twitter, clowning on Elon about a reference we made to one of his products about a 2016 Nick Cage movie that nobody fucking saw, there's an 80% chance he would respond personally and ban us. So, you know, of course, that's what I'm going to do with our official podcast Twitter as soon as we finish recording this episode.
Yeah, that sounds like a win-win. People get to see us and we don't have to post on Twitter anymore. I never thought I'd see the day where I'm like, Facebook or Twitter? I think I got to go Facebook on this one, guys.
God, I can't do it, man. I don't want to see who in my graduating high school class became racist in the years since I've seen them. That's really all I've found Facebook to be useful for.
A lot of them.
Yeah, I fucking know. That's why I'm not on there anymore.
Okay, so I'm not sure if it does not seem like that would have been timer based. It's actually contact or manual electric fuse. So you got to get close, press the button, and blow up.
I'm assuming it has a limited fuel supply though, and
yes.
I also feel like one of the rules is if once you get shot, you can't come back. That's the only thing you can't do. Like, good luck from there.
They also seem to be very bad about taking on water and causing a unnecessary misfire.
Yeah, that'll fuck up your trajectory.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's a shame. Anyway, so after
transition,
sorry, that's fucking dark. That whole scene, and they don't give it the appropriate weight, right? Because they're trying to pull a bait and switch on you in the first place. But what happens to this poor chitin pilot is dark. He's fired at a bunch of civilians, and he misses, thankfully, but then dies for no good reason.
There is not a lot of gravitas in that scene, honestly.
No.
Yeah. No, and they could have made it poignant too, especially considering the fact that the guy probably died by drowning, which I hear is not the best way to go. So yeah, kind of dark and not given the weight it probably should have. And so yeah, we wrap up with the Indianapolis revealing, oh, it's just a readiness drill. That's great. And also we get a follow-up on the black and white servicemen who were in the fight because they're locked in the brig. And so we get a brief scene of them locked up and yeah, just sort of establishing the racial tension subplot that's going to resolve itself later in the film, we can assume. But then we get, sorry, lost my place. Oh, we get a great Sizemore scene in which Sizemore gives the most important foreshadowing of the movie so far. How he's explaining, he's clowning on one of the Navy officers who wanted to join the Army and for whatever reason ended up in the Navy and does not know how to swim. And he's like, that's fine. It doesn't matter because if the ship goes down and the Japanese haven't gotten you, Sharks will, because there's a lot of sharks out in here, these here waters. So, perfect foreshadowing and delivered through the perfect person to give it. And then right around this point is when the ship arrives at its intended location safely and drops off its cargo, but they're still being denied an escort because there should be no record of them being there in the first place, right? So they can't switch back to appropriate protocol at this point either. And just in case you missed all of Tom Sizemore's fucking speech in the first place, there is a hanging shark's jaw in the scene where Nick Cage is told that they're not going to get an escort.
That was a fun framing. I did notice that. I thought it was kind of neat.
It would have been fine if it wasn't 5 fucking minutes after Sizemore's like, we're definitely going to go down and there's going to be fucking sharks. It's just, I don't know. It's inappropriate timing for it. What are you going to do? So,
I mean, fair, I guess.
So Sizemore's speech has freaked out some of the sailors, and so they go and seek out Bama, who apparently, this is the only time it's referenced in the entirety of the film, is known for diving. I guess he's an avid diver when he's not actively on a naval ship. And so they ask him about sharks. And I can't even remember what he says. He says something quippy about it.
It's the dumbest shit. So they're asking him about sharks. And one of the guys says, "Oh, well, you can't bleed around them, right? I heard that they're like attracted to blood." And then he just says, like, if you're bleeding around a shark, you're already dead. And that's all he says. There's no insight.
So I wasn't even sure if it was that or if he was like, yeah, if you're bleeding in the water, is that a problem? He's like, yeah, it's a fucking problem. Like, that's the only advice he gives.
Yeah. It's all he does is confirm, like he gives no insight, nothing. Just like, yeah, if you're bleeding in the water, like, don't do that.
Good advice. Don't bleed in water near sharks.
Oh, and the funny way they try and close out the scene with a joke is the one guy, like one of the two sailors that came to ask for advice, turns the other guy's like, I get nosebleeds. Like,
yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
I caught that.
So now that we have not had 1 or 2, but 3 separate, they're definitely going into the water with the sharks setups, we get an overhead shot and a card that tells us it is July 30th, 1945, 0 dark 100. What hour is dark?
I don't know. I was never in the military.
Is it midnight? Because like they had the fucking movie
I
0
know,
dark 30. Is that 12:30?
That the ship was sank at around 12:30 in the morning.
All right.
Yeah, okay, dark is midnight. Confirmed.
Okay.
Also, I was gonna say, like, with the shark thing, just because the movie poster kind of gives away the sharks, we're kind of in a snakes on a plane situation where we're waiting for the sharks. Like, you're waiting for the snakes on a plane.
See, I don't know. Snakes on a Plane is too entertaining of a film to put that impedance on. I mean, this is a Sharknado situation.
It's worse than both of those, because at least those films tell you exactly what, like, you have to either know history
or have seen Jaws.
Or have seen Jaws and remember that speech really, really well.
100 men went into the water. 317 came out. Sharks got the rest.
I'm going to get back to that. I can't remember if he says 317 or 316, but there is a disparity. There's a disparity between what this movie quotes as the number of people who came out.
I actually got it pulled up. It's 316. I did misspeak there, but still.
Yeah. As soon as I saw it, because I actually paused partway through this film to watch the Jaws speech again. So I had the numbers in the forefront of my head. So
that's a good movie to crush some Narragansett Bay too.
So at this point, they get spotted by the Japanese submarine, and the USS Indianapolis is hit by 2 torpedoes, both of them unmanned torpedoes, by the way, at least in the film. It's not a chitin that is used to take them down.
Yeah, and just normal ass torpedoes.
And as soon as it hit, we get some bad CGI fire, which makes no sense, because immediately after the bad CGI fire, we have a number of actors doing practical effects where they're fucking on fire.
But it's always their arm. Did you notice that? Did you notice that it's just
Well,
always
I mean,
their arm?
if you're setting people on fire, it's usually the fucking arm. But
yeah, but like normally there'd be like space in between, but it's like they cut to 4 different people,
yeah.
and it's always their right arm.
Oh, I was going to ask if it's the same arm. That's probably
Yes.
a budgetary thing. I'm thinking maybe all they could afford was like the right arm to the flame suit.
So, but like,
Maybe.
it's just again, it's the problem with spacing shit out. It's like they have a basic understanding of movies, but they don't understand how to properly sequence things to make it not seem bizarre. So bad CGI fire followed immediately by practical effect fire, which makes it worse. But I will give them the nod for the practical effects. At least they set some people on fucking fire. All right, for real. I'll give them credit for that. Any movie that digs into the practical effects to any level was like, God bless, keep doing that. I like seeing practical effects. But essentially, Cage gets told that there's nothing we can do. The ship is going down at this point. So he gives the command to abandon ship. We must have been treated to a series of like explosions and things going bad, because my notes just read at this point, this ship is fucked. All the sailors are rushing to get out. The 2 sailors that were fighting and were locked in the brig, we get a flash of them, and one of the black sailor's friends comes down with the keys and opens his cell, but then immediately drops the keys, and this area of the ship is already flooding. So they go to make good their escape with the white sailor like scream like, I am sorry, please don't leave me here to drown. That
Hey,
seems
second
like
movie in a row that somebody's stuck in a cell when they're going to drown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And second movie in a row where somebody has an attack of conscience and goes back and saves them, because that's exactly what happens here. Unfortunately, now this I texted our group to ask a question, because the way this is set up is very bad. Because
yeah, I know
explosion-
exactly what you're going to talk about. I was
Yeah.
also a little bit confused at the first moment of this.
An explosion that occurs after the black sailor has unlocked the cell seemingly traps both of them in the cell again, and it looks like they're both going to drown. They say prayers and try and make their peace, and you know, we cut away from them to other sailors like jumping overboard into the water and shit, and then we cut back to them with the white sailor apologizing that he got this guy killed just trying to come back and help him. And then the ship breaks apart at this point. We get the like Titanic, you know, snap in the middle type thing as part of it is going down. And it's at this point that Cage abandons ship as well, overboard in the water, and a shark swims like right by him in the scene.
Which I thought I had to watch this scene twice, because at first I thought that the way they edited it was that they had Nick Cage back fist a shark. I swear to God, because I heard it, and you know, the shark is obviously CGI, like it's not a puppet or anything. And
It's the wrong type of shark for that part of the world too. They're all great whites in this.
Yeah, great whites are in Atlantic.
Yeah,
they're in Atlantic Ocean and a cold water shark.
Wait, was it a great white? I thought it was a
Yeah.
mako. I didn't think it was big enough to be a great
it's
white.
all great whites in this.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
I think they just use those because they're the scariest.
I think they used some stock footage, because I saw some sharks
Yeah.
that did not look CG. I'm thinking they just hit up Discovery Channel and were like, let me get some of that Shark Week footage, baby.
They did cut in a lot of like real sharks. Basically, anytime a shark attacks somebody, that's CGI. And then anytime you just see him swimming around in the water, that's just real B-roll shark footage.
Also, if a ship sinks like that, all those people are fucking dead. In real life, the boat capsized, which is why there were so many survivors. I know that like 75% dead seems like a lot. If the shit broke in half, there would have been 0 survivors, because there were no lifeboats far enough away that the vacuum would have brought all of them down.
So is that how that works? So,
Yes.
Like, all right, I have no practical experience in this at all, but like I always assume like a big ship like starts sinking, it's gonna the displacement alone is gonna suck shit into the middle.
Yes,
But
that's exactly what happens.
Okay. All right. I wasn't entirely sure about that. You know, like
yeah, the reason why so many people survived again 75% dead doesn't seem like a lot, but the reason why they did was because it capsized, which it does not create the same kind of force when it goes down.
Huh.
Which is why like the Titanic had so many dead after, like if you weren't in a lifeboat, you were just fucking dead. Because the lifeboats got away fast enough because it took 90 minutes to go down.
I think I could swim fast enough.
I'm a big enough, strong enough man. Oh, beat that boat.
Sorry
am a
to
big
everybody
boy
who
who
died
can
in the
do big boy
Titanic, but I guess
things.
I'm just built different. All right, so now we've gotten to the only reason I wasn't a conscientious objector to reviewing this film, because I was hoping to see some shark attacks. Of course, like my mom always liked to say as I was growing up, God don't like ugly, so all of those shark attacks kind of sucked. But I think that's best saved for episode 2 of this film review. So as always, I mean, we mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. You can follow us on Twitter while Twitter is still around and we're not banned by our new robot overlord, Elon Musk. And you can find us there at cagefight_pod.
You can also find us at patreon.com/NickCageFight. The $3 podcast basically gets you this entire episode, but without the ads in the front, the end, or the middle, which I think is pretty cool personally, as well as additional episodes, live streams of us losing our minds watching Nick Cage movies, live watches with us. We are also doing a thing where if we get 10 Patreons, Ryan is going to learn how to speedrun G-Force, the video game. So please make him do that.
I love pain. Give it to me.
Don't make me contribute. Like
you're gonna make 5 shadow accounts or like 9 shadow accounts just to make sure that I do that to me.
Look, it could be the $3 one. It's fine. Whatever you want, it doesn't matter. We just want 9 more people to make Ryan play this video game. I am locked and loaded with a Nick Cage Fight podcast Twitch account. I have everything set. I'm ready to go on this shit.
And as always, shout out to Chris Gamer, the current world champion. I'm coming for that ass, Chris.
Yeah, come on the pod, Chris.
Yeah, we have to find this person.
It's gonna end up being a milkshake duck or some shit.
All right. Well, I honestly I can't think of a better note to end on. So as always, listener, we appreciate you.